Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Inland Empire Working Together. My name is Paul Granillo. I'm the President and CEO of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership, and it's my pleasure to be joined by Lisa Anderson of LMA Consulting. Lisa, good afternoon.
Glad to be here.
Lisa, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, so I am founder and president of LMA Consulting Group. We work with manufacturers and specialize in supply chain management. Prior to that, I was a vice president of operations and supply chain for a mid-market manufacturer. And I got my start out of college by working at Coca-Cola.
Okay. So you've taken your corporate experience and now you're helping other business owners to maximize their ability to serve the people that they serve, right?
That's correct. Definitely interested in helping manufacturers grow their sales by working with improving their service levels, lead times, and basically bottom line results.
Okay. All right, Lisa. So let's talk a little bit about workforce issues that your clients bring up. So, what's the number 1, 2, and 3 issues that they talk to you about?
Well, the last several years has really been finding enough people with the appropriate skills to run their manufacturing operations. That's really one of the key things, and also for supporting functions such as planning, purchasing, etc. So one is just having enough of high-skilled resources. So in addition, there's a lot of changes occurring with automation, advanced technologies. So it's keeping up with the skills and training and education requirements and apprenticeship type programs to keep up. To make sure that teams are keeping up with changing requirements and business conditions. So that would be number 2. And then number 3 is really, very much related, is how do you find somebody with diverse skills like that? I mean, it's challenging in today's environment because, especially in manufacturing and distribution companies, you generally speaking need folks who are, actively engaged on a daily basis, and it's not flexible as much as other professions are. And they need really higher and higher skill sets. So it's how to develop that set of people so that you have the skills to meet the changing needs.
Okay. So let's dig a little bit deeper for our education partners who might be watching the podcast. So I heard you say that it's a job that requires some energy, right? So they need to be engaged. All right. So that would be a skill that is definitely required. And then I heard you talk about the need to have a higher level skill set. So can we dig a little deeper into what higher level skill set means? And maybe you can talk us through one of your clients. You don't have to give us their name, but kind of what they do and what that skill set might be.
Well, so sure, really, there's a lot of different skill sets that are needed today, and that's part of the challenge that relates to some of the other, priorities that I mentioned. But we'll start with the technical side. So part of what is needed in today's environment is someone who has, the technical skills to keep up with advanced technologies, changing conditions. So if you're let's say a production planner, so you plan what is scheduled in the manufacturing facility, or, a inventory planner, which is very similar, where you might plan what needs to be purchased or what inventory is going to come into your distribution center so that you make sure that you can service customers on time and in the most profitable way possible. So those types of roles need significantly more systems aptitude, the ability to work with advanced technologies. We have data coming in from different items that, Internet of Things, items in the warehouse, um, items that are on machines to track, how fast, let's say, the machine is running. And so, you have to know how to utilize advanced technologies, AI, I could go on and on. But in essence, that's one of the skills. If you're on the manufacturing or shop floor, or you're in the warehouse, you actually have to, you may have vision type goggles. You may have on the manufacturing floor, you need to, work with a 3D printer, or you may need to, there's several advanced technologies. There's different equipment needs in today's environment. And so you really have to have more advanced skills. It's much less labor intensive and much more, skill intensive. Does that answer that part of the question?
Yeah, it does. I think so. When we're talking about manufacturing and we're talking about logistics, right? Things just don't move themselves, right? They need to be moved, and they need to be moved in some type of vehicle, and that all takes planning. And more, I'm hearing you say that there are, uh, you know, software and artificial intelligence, augmented reality um, options that allow people to be more uh, uh, to do their job better, right? So, but you need to be trained um, in those technologies. You need to know how to use them, right? Otherwise, it's just like my daughter's much better at using technology than I am, right? So
That's
to
true.
and when you're a business owner and you're investing in that technology, you want to make sure that you're maximizing the use of it, correct?
Yes, correct, for sure. 'Cause, in addition to it automating tasks, which, like an easy conveyor belt in a warehouse is a good example, or robotics, can automate a task. And same thing in the system. You can create a simple code that instead of keying something over and over again, like if, a simple if then statement type of a thing, you can automate that type of a task pretty easily. And then, so therefore, more and more of the jobs are going to be to analyze information, have more experience and see something changing in the environment that you have to address or adjust, those types of things. And, the advanced technologies also help you have a more consistent quality and not just be, faster and automate tasks so that there's less repetitive, or it's easier to get hurt, and those types of, so there's a lot of benefits for that way, but nevertheless you have to know how to, you have to have a whole different set of skills than you used to have.
Okay. And off the top of your head, Lisa, are we talking system engineer? So that's a BS degree. Are we talking classes and certificates or credentials coming from the community colleges? What level are your clients looking at? Where are they getting their workforce?
Well, that's a good question, and I guess you asked me about an example, so I'll go there and then talk about how to get to, what type of education is more required today. So, like, for example, in a manufacturing environment, there was an aerospace manufacturer in this region that could not keep up with the demands, customer demands, because of one area in their manufacturing environment. And so they and it was a high skilled role. So it really required specialty skills. There just aren't that many people with those types of skills. So, but they had to work 3 shifts a day in order to keep up with the volume. So they ended up actually purchasing a robot that would, be able to do the function while the their skilled technician or technicians weren't there. However, that wasn't enough. They actually had to, of course, it's never enough. Nothing is ever that simple. So they had to tailor the robot, program, change the uh, attributes, and then test it out. And then they were able to run through the night, second and third shifts, and then they just kept all their skilled changeovers and you know um, re- jobs that required a skilled person for first shift. So they were able to like eliminate that bottleneck and continue going. The same is true, and you can even use robotics as an example in the warehouse, uh, because with the significant increase in e-commerce and distribution needs that have happened since the pandemic, and specifically in this region, it's been quite immense. So there's some many distribution type companies in the Inland Empire that have implemented not just automation but robotics to do repetitive or simple tasks so that they can have the people focusing on other areas. And so, from that point of view, a technical degree, like at a community college in robotics, there's certificate programs. Those can be actually more beneficial than a standard like generic degree. And robotics is not that different from a lot of the other fields that I could bring up. If we're talking about some of the positions like planning, buying, inventory, getting the right inventory in house, those types of things. I'm the president of the Association of Supply Chain Management in this region, and we offer education and training to cover those types of topics, and it's certifications in our case. So that's actually a good crash course, and it can get someone up to speed pretty quickly with the basics, and then it's just building upon those skills. But those are some of a couple of examples that relate to how you can get the higher skilled the higher skills that are needed in today's environment.
Okay. So when people think of robotics, I think they probably tend to think of the big players like Amazon. I would say, am I safe to say that many of your clients maybe have from 10 to 200 employees? Is that about right, or is there some bigger?
Well, I have actually both, but for sure the examples that I was providing you are they're from this area. So generally speaking, they're going to be the small and medium sized companies like you're describing. So you can you can utilize some of these advanced technologies even with a small company. To your point, you're not going to, well, I don't want to say throw money at it, but in essence, the larger companies have significant dollars to invest, and so they can roll out widespread programs. But the smaller companies can be innovative, and they can they just go about it in a different way, but they can be just as successful with these technologies.
Right. So let's focus on that group then, right? So when you go in and you analyze where things are and you find those bottlenecks and there are opportunities to automate, right? Um, do you suggest the type of automation? Have you become an expert in automation? Do you have somebody who suggests a certain, and when we talk about automation, that can be a conveyance system, that can be a robot, that can be, a robot that is an arm, lots of different types of, of, uh, of automation. But how do you go about helping them decide um, if they're going to automate? And then how hard is that for them if they know it's going to maybe replace somebody in their company, and go a little bit farther, or is there maybe that it's not just the robot, but it's going to be somebody to run the robot, so they're going to actually have to add people. So why don't
Well,
you tackle those for a little bit?
all right. Well, for this, it sounds like for the small and medium-sized companies, which it sounds like you're most interested in. So I am the expert in well, two things. We have a we focus in on the order fulfillment process. So from figuring out what you're going to sell to customers, so sales forecasting, demand planning, understanding, the quotes and orders as they come in, to how do you utilize your ERP system and related technologies and advanced technologies to, um, plan the product most efficiently, order the right inventory, ship efficiently, transportation wise, etc. So if it's in that end-to-end order fulfillment process, we're really the experts in understanding the process and advanced technologies, and helping them go hand in hand, and providing the assessments and recommendations, and we'll work with them to upgrade the appropriate processes and technologies. Now, for supporting technologies like robotics, let's say, it oftentimes comes up, especially in in the manufacturing floor, in the warehouse, and it will be related to the projects. And then in that case, you can't be an expert in everything. We have partners and suppliers that we bring in based upon what each client needs, because not every client is the same. So we're more of like review what's needed. If it's a manufacturer distributor, we can review what's needed for everything they do, and then we would make recommendations. And then in some cases, we can bring in partners or just recommend, and they can pursue on their own. And in other cases, when it comes to that order fulfillment cycle, I guess you could call it, we focus there and would help them specifically.
Okay, and then deal a little bit with does automation mean that I'm going to have to lay off one of my long-serving employees, or if I bring on this automation, I'm going to have to hire two people for the care and feeding of this new technology?
Well, I mean that's so I would say, generally speaking, no. So like another example, because like another example would be data analytics, predictive analytics, just looking at the data, and that's an area that we specialize in as well. Figure out what this means, and it could easily, theoretically, eliminate some positions with that approach, or automating any of these tasks along the way. Basic planning tasks these days can be automated with AI type softwares. And then the same thing for like robotics, automation, equipment, etc. Theoretically, it could automate some jobs. However, that's not what I see happening in practice. Well, actually, almost all of our clients are struggling to find the people to run their manufacturing distribution facilities, especially those of higher skills. And most of, like, for example, in manufacturing, you may have a few low skill jobs, but they generally speaking are not, there's some skills needed throughout. So it is moving these roles to be higher skilled over time. However, of course, we're working with them. We're suggesting that they upskill, they provide training and development, and I'm not seeing that they're automating jobs away where people are, they're laying off because of it. Instead, they're more likely to have a hard time finding enough people to keep up, and so automation and robotics just allows them to keep up with their changing customer demands and the customer requests, because there's various nuances that customers are always requesting that they struggle to do without additional resources. So I see more, I would say at least 80/20, probably, 95/5. I'm seeing that clients are um, thinking ahead, providing training, and it's not creating mass layoffs. Now, I'm hearing uh, in the AI realm, like concerns, because, like, for example, as I said, it could automate some simple tasks along the way for all jobs. And so to some degree, that can be concerning. However, it also can be viewed as that's where I think it goes back to leadership. If you give your employees the tools, it'll help them get up to speed faster and be more productive sooner. Because they'll use the tools, the AI tools, and then you know, uh, they'll just make faster progress. It doesn't mean that they don't still need like training and education to go along with it, but it just will allow them to get up to speed faster. So I think it's all in how you manage it. If you have a great leader, you're gonna shine and you're gonna have more volume than you can hire people to find. If you don't have a progressive leader and you're thinking, you know, you're not doing these forward thinking strategies, you probably will end up in the position where you're laying off people because you think you've replaced them, but then like next thing you know, your customers are going to be unhappy because things are going wrong. So, if you're in that position, you're likely to have all the problems regardless. So I do think that in the next several years, the winners will be separated from the losers, probably like no other time in history.
Okay. So let's tackle AI on directly.
Okay.
So one of the best examples that I've ever been given was from UPS, and at that time, a gentleman who was responsible for their air freight, and he talked about the new technology, artificial intelligence, and there was a day when somebody plotted out all of the flights, right, coming from the East Coast to the West Coast or the
Yep.
West Coast to the East Coast. Now, those of us who fly know that when you fly from the East Coast to the West Coast, it takes about half an hour longer because you're going against the prevailing winds, right? The wind current. Um, and his example of the use of artificial intelligence is that because it can crunch information in real time, some of those planes could be half an hour late. Some of those planes could be 20 minutes late. Um, there's a multiplier effect, though, because there's trucks waiting for that plane to land and that cargo to be unloaded and then reloaded. And if it was left to human beings, um, you're going to have a lot of wasted time where the artificial intelligence can tell you exactly what time the plane will land and when the truck should be ready to go, and the long term effects of that plane being delayed or being early are mitigated against. So you're getting product to where it needs to go as fast as possible. So with that long example, where do you see artificial intelligence being deployed today?
Well, uh, so I'll just take the overall view and then I can talk to the region because they are two different things. But overall, like for example, in that order fulfillment cycle I was talking about, and it relates to this area in the sense that we live in a global supply chain. And so there are artificial intelligence incorporated into demand planning and advanced planning systems, which that means is figuring out what your sales forecast is going to be. It does a better job of. That's been more traditional and incorporated in for a longer period of time. But on the planning side, what that means is if you have, let's say, container ships going, if you're a larger organization, you have multiple facilities and or suppliers throughout the world, it can track where all your container ships are, what's on them. It could calculate what some potential disruptions or issues might be, reroute them and or trucks. You could think about it the same way with a truck. If you have multiple trucks driving around, you can do the same thing as similar to what you were saying, Paul, as far as are the trucks going to arrive 20 minutes late because there's traffic in LA or something? Same thing, whether it's a container ship, truck, or rail or whatever. So, in essence, it can do a better job of looking at networks of information like that. And in manufacturing, it's kind of similar because it can look at all the different inputs going on in terms of manufacturing and what's happening with new machines. And it can, many times there's multiple steps in a manufacturing process, and it can better see the issues and plan them, like you said, so that you can condense the amount of time that whatever it takes, whether it's transportation time, manufacturing time, whatever time. So it's going to condense the time, and is generally speaking, it's going to prioritize them better so that you can, optimize what you're trying to optimize, like your cost, could even be your carbon footprints, right? If you look back into your supply chain. So, artificial intelligence has a lot of opportunities throughout the global supply chain. Now, if we're talking about smaller companies, that there's still quite a bit that artificial intelligence can do. You're less likely to be doing that network that I just described, but you're more likely to use it. Like there's a small manufacturer in the Inland Empire that has been recently looking at it to automate some standard like work instructions, standard contracts, and they were looking at how artificial intelligence could help them automate some of these other processes so that they didn't have to, dedicate people to doing them. And another one is basic planning. So what planning means is, what are you going to run? When are you going to run it? Or what are you going to receive and purchase if you're in a distribution environment, and when, so that you can make sure that you have what you need for your customers, but you don't have too much, because after all, then you're wasting your cash, and you may even run out of space. So how do you maximize all of those pieces? And you can do it with artificial intelligence, and it can at least give you basic recommendations, and then you can have somebody look at those. So that's like one of the ways that it is happening in the companies in this area.
Yeah. I saw another demonstration of an HR system, which is artificial intelligence, so that if, in its case, this company has stores, small stores, and so the example was someone walks in the door and collapses. What do I do? So that the store manager can ask that, and immediately all of the directions, call 911, and who to call within the company, and what to document. All of that was made available to the person just by pushing the button and talking to it to say what had happened. So you can see where that would be a very useful technology for a store manager.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, that's a good example that you could use the other way too. If you looked at it like a training manual, right? So you put all the videos, pictures, etc., in. You can have, like, a newer employee can like look up almost infinite amounts of training materials than they used to be able to.
And that was the point, right? It's not, oh gosh, where's the manual on what uh, in what cabinet, right? It's no, I just talk to my computer and it's going to tell me right away
Yep.
what to do and what the policy is. So, and it makes perfect sense. So, where are things going to be in 10 years?
Well, I do think that this trend will continue. I mean, AI is the future, which is going to require significant computational power, and that could definitely have an impact on the state and the region for like energy needs, etc. But from a business standpoint, really, I remember, like, I don't know if it was 10 years ago or what, that you used to say that we have to be thinking about the future and looking at building skills. But I think there's no time like the present, because if anything, most companies are already behind because technology is moving at a rapid pace. It's far surpassing what people can do. So you need to like jump on that bandwagon. Although it's not all about technology, I meant to say this earlier. I mean, that is going to be the key. However, as my consulting mentor says, high tech requires high touch, meaning that you have to have even more communication, the ability to collaborate with additional partners, sometimes even competitors, and you have to be able to communicate well to your employees, and you know it's actually going to become, well, high tech equals high touch is going to be more and more what's needed in the future, with a special emphasis on AI, because that is taking over. It's going to be it's the next big thing.
Okay. And Lisa, talk a little bit about the different groups you belong to and who those people are.
Well, over the years, I've been involved in a tremendous number of groups, but I would say currently I focus my attention on ASCM, which is the Association of Supply Chain Management. I'm the president of the Inland Empire chapter. We really focus in on working with manufacturers, distributors, and transportation like related organizations, and help them, you know, really gain the skills that we've been talking about here today. So that's what that organization does. Also been involved with Provisors, which is a group of trusted advisors. It's now national. It gets started in California, but they're attorneys, accountants, CPAs, anyone that works directly with businesses and are advisors, well, trusted advisors, as the name says, to businesses. So supporting things like these technology rollouts, and you know, workforce needs, that kind of thing. And I've worked a lot with the universities, colleges, students, really for advancing the supply chain careers. And I've been involved with several different logistics groups over the years as well. Um, and then there's just been like a variety of other groups here and there. Like I belong to a group of CEOs, so they can keep track of what's hot on their mind, and different manufacturing and supply chain type organizations.
Yeah. And what's on the CEO's mind?
Well, it is quite the challenge in today's environment. So I think that they are really, they would like to have more stability in knowing what's going to happen. Of course, that's always the case. And so I think really what's going to happen in the future world here is whichever CEO is more agile, able to think on their feet, and you know, it has to have this high tech, high touch thought process. I see them doing being much more successful than the rest. But a lot of them are looking at these workforce kind of needs. It comes up all the time. Talent, technology are two of the hottest topics that are on their mind constantly.
Okay, great. So, Lisa, any final comments? Anything I didn't ask you that you want to talk to the audience about?
Well, I think since you're talking about workforce, I think the other thing that's important here is getting someone who has the ability to think, because I've seen people who've achieved all the certificates that we could probably talk about today, and they still couldn't perform their job, or at least not effectively. And it's really because you have to have a little bit of common sense and, you know, the ability to think through a situation. Um, you know, one of the things that I heard from a speaker at a couple of different events, because I also used to lead a consulting organization, and he spoke there as well as in a CEO group. And he was talking about the younger generations. And the younger generations, or at least the millennials that he was talking about, and the folks that follow him, are much more accustomed to receiving a specific, what do they call them? Rubric? Well, basically, here's how you get through school. You're going to need to do this, and this very specifically. I forgot what they call it. They didn't have them in my day. I guess I'm too old. But they have these specific agendas for how you will do well in school. And so the students emerging today believe that they're going to get the specific rubric from companies. That's not how the world works. The world really works more like we have to figure it out. You gain the base skills, and then you have to figure out how you think through problems and solve issues. So the most successful companies, according to the speaker, but I completely agree with him, are going to be those that find people and help their team members develop the skill to innovate, think creatively, and give them a framework, I guess, for making decisions. Because unfortunately, perhaps, decisions that have to be made in companies, and in order to succeed, you have to be able to think through multiple competing variables, and there's no prescription for how to do that well. So I think the ability to think is really very important in workforce development today.
Okay. That's a great way to end this segment. Lisa, I really appreciate you joining us. I enjoy talking to you about these issues. They're important issues. And what I really appreciate is that you're giving us real time information about what decision makers are looking for when it comes to their hiring needs. So, really appreciate your time and uh, your great deep intellect. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Once again, I want to thank Lisa Anderson for helping us to understand the workforce needs of our manufacturing and distribution friends in the Inland Empire. I want to invite you to join us for our next segment, which is going to be a deep dive into healthcare and the healthcare workforce needs of a hospital CEO. We'll see you then.